Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 31 Media podcast. My name is Vaishnavi.nashte. I'm the marketing manager here at 31 Media. Today's podcast is in collaboration with the AI Awards and Summit, which are taking place this year in April. Today, we have on the podcast Dr. Annie Howe, who serves as the global head of data and AI at McCann Worldgroup, bringing nearly a decade of experience to the industry. She was awarded the prestigious Alexander Graham Bell Canadian Graduate Scholarship. She was also the founder of multiple impactful initiatives, such as the McMaster Graduate Mentorship Program at the University of Toronto Undergraduate Physics and Astronomy Society's Women's Committee. This truly showcases her commitment to mentorship and diversity in STEM, and we are more than thrilled to have her as one of the esteemed judges on the AI Awards judging panel. So, without any further ado, welcome to the 31 Media Podcast. Annie, how are you today?
I'm great. Thank you. Firstly, thank you so much for inviting me on the podcast, but also to be a judge on this AI Awards. I'm really sort of grateful and honored to be able to participate.
No problem. Yeah, I think it's all about having experts such as yourself who've got so much experience in the industry and they can, judge what the trends are in the industry with respect to AI, of course, because it's a discipline that just keeps on growing every single day, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely.
Before we actually dive into the questions, could you tell our audience
Mhm.
like a little more about yourself and how you got into this stream altogether?
Absolutely. So as you said, I'm the currently the global head of data and AI for McCann Worldgroup. But I'm also a member, well, as part of that, I'm a member of the Truth Central Intelligence team. And that's this incredible mix of market research, data gurus, and also product and solution development. So I'm able to leverage both data and AI
Mm-hmm.
across many, many fields, across all of our clients, and developing solutions both internally and externally.
Yeah.
So it's a wonderful sort of role to get to, as your point, see how AI is used in all of our different verticals as we have clients from pharma to beauty to FMCG, CPG. So we get to see the spaces across everything.
Yeah.
I think I am also a practicing data scientist. And as most data scientists, I started off my career in academia, as you said. And my love for sort of data and modeling started there, where I really focused on modeling galaxies and like understanding the universe. And it's
Mm-hmm.
everyone keeps asking how much of a shift it is, but it isn't, because in the end, I think it's about understanding sort of the whys and the what ifs. And so, yes, I used to model galaxies. Now I model people. So it's, I think, very similar in sort of the quest for understanding and the quest for um, using the best techniques to get to that understanding. And I think similar outcomes, different subjects.
Right. Yeah, that's amazing. Like it sounds really interesting, in terms of especially your academic experience. And being in AI now for quite some time now, where do
Mhm.
you see AI taking us in the future?
Yeah, so I think, of course, AI is not remotely new. Actually, it's one of my biggest pet peeves that like became this thing that everyone's like, oh, the new AI. But what I do think is a massive shift since sort of the big explosion of LLMs and ChatGPT
Mm,
is that it's now in the public domain as opposed to it being solely in the hands of sort of practicing data scientists or academics.
yeah.
Having it in our phones, in our computers, like the way that we search, the way that we interact with the world is such a massive shift that I think that it does become a paradigm shift in the way that we engage in general. Just like the smartphone shifted the way that we interact with the world, I think this sort of recent wave of apps and sort of foundational models will change the way that we live, both personally and professionally. I mean, I now use it daily for my research. I use it daily for sort of strategic planning for writing, but I also
Yeah,
use it personally in terms of like planning a vacation, helping my
of
daughter with
course.
her
Yeah.
homework. Like, it's really changing the way we interact with the world, and that to me is a fundamental shift. And so I think in the future, that is going to be sort of more and more sort of integrated with our daily lives, and that's across the world. And as much as I hate this word, I do think AI agents, I know it's a buzzword, but I do think it's again, one of those things that will make a huge like shift in the way that we interact.
Yeah.
Obviously, from an enterprise standpoint, it's going to be very much about how we build software, how we build everything. It's going to change the way we architect all of our solutions. But I
Hmm.
also, it's going to change efficiency. It's going to change the way that we sort of basically interact with everything, which is going to be, again, a huge shift. I think it's still a little bit of time before it becomes, fully embedded in our day-to-day lives, but I think we're
Right.
slowly getting there.
Yeah. And if you had to pick like top three trends that you might be looking forward to in 2025, what would that be?
Um, it's interesting. I think this one's always a hard one. So I think it's, again, more and more use of like the agentic framework across end-to-end solutions. I think before it was very much using sort of singular platforms, singular solutions for sort of niche products, but now it's going to be sort of using the best of this platform, changing that solution to another platform, sort of enabling the agents to make some sort of low-level decisions and basically the way that it creates and sort of interacts with software. I think that's going to be a big one for this year.
Mm-hmm.
I think the other one is also, again, more and more use in the day-to-day professional software. So even at professional lives, even at McCann Worldgroup, we're sort of focusing a lot on training each of our verticals. So strategy,
Mm-hmm.
creative, business needs, it's becoming embedded in our process. It's now just not something that, the few that are sort of tech savvy are using. It's becoming part of our day-to-day.
Right.
Um, and then I would like to, I guess it's intriguing. The CES happened recently and there was less focus on all of these really crazy integrated softwares. But again, I think that when we get more into sort of 2025, it'll be more about integration of solutions.
Right. And taking these trends into consideration, do you, as a judge for the AI Awards, have any particular expectations from the kind of projects you might come across this year?
So again, I think how when I think about the AI awards and when I think about even any of these sort of projects and submissions, um, I think it's very important to always think about not just having AI for AI's sake.
Mm-hmm.
So it's smart and forward thinking use of AI. So it doesn't have to be this incredibly like fully changed solution with like Gen AI and agentic software every from end to end. I think it's about picking and choosing the right sort of parts of your proposal that make sense. And sometimes that's just good old ML, and sometimes that's just good old like filtering or good old use of sort of data ETL pipelines, and then sort of using AI in the right places is I think my expectation from the awards. And I think also given the verticals that we have, sort of really focusing on that ethical and sustainable use along the lines of not AI for AI's sake, I think being really smart about how you sort of build your guardrails on top of your solutions, how you curate the data to make sure that we're sort of de-biasing. I think all of those things are super important in sort of any of the submissions that we have.
Right. And if you had to, pinpoint certain aspects or like certain projects that you think would be qualified to enter the awards, do you have like any things in your mind, or is it like open to everybody? How does that work?
Yeah, so the AI awards anyone can submit, so it's not limited to size of company, where you work, where you live, all of that is completely open. Um, I think in terms of the submission and what I'm hoping to see is that independent of who you are and where you are, you're really thinking about the use case. And so you're really thinking about whether it's in healthcare, whether that's in finance, whether that's in a business trend or retail. You're thinking about a smart way to apply that one particular solution in that space. And again, it's yes about the technical implementations, yes it's about the sort of ethical considerations, but it's also about the application, right? So
Right.
does it make sense for what you're proposing it to be?
Right. And as a judge, like, could you give our audience and especially entrants for this year a bit more insight into what the judging process looks like and what you as a judge would look for in an entry?
Yes, again, so I love these awards because it's completely unbiased. We have no clue who's submitting any of that sort of personal information. So it really is just about the proposal and the submission in and
Hmm.
of itself. So I think that helps us sort of take away any bias that we have in part of our judging process. But I think also because of that, you need to be, again, very clear about what you're building, why you're building it, the technical implementations, and why you made those choices. Because again, I think with AI, there are multiple considerations with even say the foundational model you picked or any of the solutions that you picked or the data set that you picked. So I think being very sort of clear about any choices you make is something that I'm expecting.
Hmm.
And then again, sort of strong application of what you're building and why. And I think it would be again good to, I think similar to the NIPS process, thinking about what additional implications it might have outside of what your original intended purpose was.
Right. And lastly, do you have any tips in terms of writing an entry for this year's entrance?
Yeah, I do. I guess what I would do is there's this great website called there's an AI for that, which basically has a huge list of all the things that are currently available in terms of apps and tools. I would have a look at that because that's a good sense of what's trending, of what's being needed and what's being used, because there's also a lot of stuff that's not being um, applied or used by anyone. So it's, I think, a good
Yeah.
starting place to understand the best use cases. And then I would also then again look at sort of a lot of the latest development. So again, like the space is changing so fast that, even in December of last year, Gemini released a solution that has 2 million token context, right? So that's a
Yeah.
massive shift from like the early days of GPT. So I think having an eye on sort of the tech and the trends is, I think, the best way, and the use cases are my top three tips.
Okay, sweet. Yeah, thank you for mentioning that. I'll make sure to mention that in the description as well, the link to the site. But one last question. Do you as a judge think that making early submissions actually plays a role in terms of how your entry gets judged? Like making an
Um,
early submission as respect to like as opposed to submitting at the very end before the deadline.
I mean, I always think having like I think it's independent of whether it's early or not. I think just being I think it's always good to get things in early whenever I'm trying to
Yeah,
submit something in. It's good to submit it. I guess, yeah, yeah,
right.
not sure.
Yeah, no, that does make sense. I did have a chat with like the rest of the judges from our software testing awards as well, and a lot
Mhm.
of them they gave similar answers in terms of like what the key tips would be, and most of them
Mhm.
said that making early submissions does play an important role in terms of how your judges, perceive your entries or how they judge your entries. But yeah, thank you for that. And also, thank you for mentioning all the key tips. I'll make sure that everything gets mentioned in the description as well. But yeah,
Absolutely.
that's all the questions from my end, Annie. Do you have any last comments for our audience today?
No, I think the best thing is to just not expect to not like I guess to apply because there's no harm in applying. I think it's a great idea
Yeah,
to get your submissions out there, and I think I really encourage everyone in each of the verticals to submit something,
yeah.
and really looking forward to all of your submissions.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Annie, for taking the time out today and being on the podcast. It was lovely chatting with you today.
Yes, well.